Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. Today I'm here with Roel. Hey Roel, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
And we also have two person from Juniper to talk about Marvis today. So we have Trishna Belgal and we have Kumar Pardiswamy. How are you guys?
You're doing good.
Doing good.
Awesome. So what we want to do today is following Mobility Field Day, which happened last week, beginning of May 2025. We wanted to have you guys on and talk a little bit more about Marvis and the new features that you guys announced last week. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself, but you guys worked on the product Marvis, and you're going to be able to kind of explain what you guys have done with Marvis lately, and then we'll have a discussion about the future of where we can take AI in networking and what you guys are doing with Juniper. So Trishna, go ahead. Why don't you present yourself and tell us what you do at Juniper?
Hey everyone, my name is Trishna Belgal. I'm part of the product management team and I work very closely with Kumar on Marvis. Prior to Marvis, I was also part of the wireless product management team and I have deep-rooted wireless background. I've started my journey with wireless, so pretty excited to be here.
Awesome.
Kumar, you.
So you've been listening to the Clear Send podcast then?
I've been listening to it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Trishna. Kumar, what about you? What do you do at Juniper?
Yeah, so I'm Kumar Pardiswamy. I've been with Juniper for 6 years now. So currently I'm a product management director for Marvis. And prior to this, I used to do product management for a product called Mistitch in Juniper Mist. I'm pretty excited. Last 3 years, I've been kind of doing product management for Marvis. It's every year. It's kind of going a notch up, and then pretty excited to be here and present all the new stuff that we are kind of doing with Marvis.
Yeah, because Marvis is pretty much the AI behind the whole Juniper solution. So you transition from networking to AI a little bit, huh? In your role?
Yeah. So I think let me put it this way, right? So I have seen the transition in terms of I've been here in networking for over 20 years now. And then when there was a cutover earlier, feet on ground, we used to kind of go to the customer's site and walk through the site. From there to being able to kind of verify everything with Marvis and Marvis Minis. It's a huge transition. It's the ROI is both in terms of time and resource, right? So Marvis has every year it has gone up in such a sense, it keeps saving both resource in terms of kind of time and effort, right, for customer as well as us, and including our support team, right? Our support team is the main driver for this. It's like a pretty kind of. It's huge for us to see every year it kind of keeps evolving itself to a better state and saves this time for everyone.
Yeah, and it's been interesting seeing the evolution of Marvis, like you said, our network assistant and helping us to manage and monitor the network. And it's been interesting to see the evolution of the of Marvis. And then you mentioned the Marvis Minis. We'll get into that for those of you who don't know what that is. And also, I'm very excited about the future of Marvis, because it feels like the evolution of Marvis is kind of ramping up. And I feel like we are getting closer and closer to a fully self-driving network that Bob has been talking about it for years now. But I feel like we're about to actually touch it soon. So it's very exciting to see the evolution of Marvis and what you guys can do today.
Yeah, and I think I will say one thing about AI and Marvis is that you're one of the few companies who have AI kind of ingrained. Right, you guys actually live and breathe AI from even the customer support level, and that's how it feeds back into how Marvis works. And so I think that's actually really important as we talk about AI and how AI is used, because everyone's using AI, but I think how a lot of us use it, individuals, it's very much us asking AI to do something. But I think Juniper does take it a lot further than just us asking it to look at something on our network.
That's right, Roel. Actually, yeah. I mean, just wanted to say everything I missed. I've worked in multiple vendors before I moved to Mist, but everything from Mist is purpose-built hardware. Everything was staged for AI. Pre-GPT era, Bob had this vision of AI and self-driving, self-healing networks. And right from the AP to the new switches, they're all purpose-built to support this journey. So as you rightly said, it's ingrained into the product. It's not a, patch on top.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Awesome. So talking about journey, Kumar, why don't you talk about the Marvis journey? I know you're going to share some slides. So if you're watching this on YouTube, great. You're going to be able to have the visual. If you're listening to this audio only, we'll try to be as descriptive as possible. And you can always go back and watch the YouTube video if you want to. Kumar, you can take it from here.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Marvis journey, right? So for last 7-8 years, there is like our Marvis journey slide, which comes from like data to service level experience, and then the data science tool set that's used to conversational assistant. To latest Zoom and Teams minutes, right? So it has remained same, but every year the way we kind of harness that data kind of gets us to the next level, wherein it's more beneficial to the end customers as well as our customer support team. So in that sense, this year, what we have been able to accomplish, and some of them we are in the process of it, is like in terms of the data itself. We have now, last year we added a new data set from Minis, and then we have now been able to take that to Minis client to cloud. What effectively it means is we were doing network services like, hey, is my DHCP, DNS are, and my application is reachable from the Minis that are running on the access point. Now we are able to do for application, we apart from reachability itself, we are now able to do like network performance measurements in terms of latency, loss, jitter, and then feed that back to the cloud and do some baselining and anomaly detections. Not just that, we will also baseline it against our missed workers across multiple POPs in the CDN, which will kind of help us to understand if there is an application issue. Is it anything to do with the WAN circuit on the site, or is it anything to do with the application itself, or is it something on the WAN between a specific hop? We'll now be able to put more light and lens into those aspects. So instead of prior to this, we were able to just point at, hey, this is something to do with the WAN, but now within WAN, we will be able to kind of give more information as to like what exactly is it when we say WAN, or if it's not WAN, then probably it's application. So we'll be able to kind of get to that level of details. Next up, we are now ready with the generalized experience model. For folks who were giving us Teams and Zoom label data, we were able to kind of get to like, hey, which user and which user minutes are kind of bad, or which user had a bad user experience in terms of Zoom and Teams, and what was the root cause, right? Which features contributed to the bad user experience for the user. Now, the same model we have now been able to use even when somebody doesn't give us a third-party label data in terms of Zoom and Teams. The model is still able to use all of the network parameters from the Juniper Mist device, and then still kind of predict as to like, hey, which users and which APs and probably which areas will have a good bad user experience, and based on that help customers to kind of update their network, either if it's adding APs or changing some details on the WAN, or like turning off VPNs for certain users. Net, we are still able to achieve the same results as if somebody had given a third-party label data as well. Continuing our journey, wherein I think you kind of mentioned it briefly, where everything we do on Marvis, the primary consumer for us, apart from the customers, is our support team, wherein for every support ticket that comes in, Marvis does kind of out with an answer as to like what it thinks or why things are not working the way they were supposed to be. And our support team on every one of those tickets, right, they rank as to like was it good, was it close enough, or was it completely off, right? And then that data is kind of taken up by the data science team and the functional teams, engineering functional teams, right, to kind of add stats or to kind of use different algorithms and try to pick up different signatures. That way, like this entire AI ops across full stack, right? The efficacy on that, whenever something is asked with respect to Marvis as like, hey, why is my client not working or not connecting? The answer that it comes out, the efficacy for that, whether at a site level or like a full stack level or a client level, that keeps going up, right? So, and then that's purely based on like everyone in the organization consumes the Marvis output and then kind of gives the feedback when it is little off or like not completely correct. We are super excited to kind of announce like a Gen AI Marvis CI. Like Tisha mentioned, like post GPT era, which is like November 2022. We have now been able to switch to like a full page Marvis CI, which is also like a WebSocket based, which means there won't be any timeout, and as and when the answer comes or available is kind of rendered. Apart from that, this is all purely LLM and intent classification based, which means there are no buttons to be clicked as, hey, I'm troubleshooting, I'm doing documentation, search, etc. You just ask the question and the intent classification takes care, and then it does a pretty good job of getting to the right intent, whether it's list trend or whether it's documentation or whether it's troubleshoot questions itself. And then the last one is the self-driving itself, right? So we were the first in the industry to kind of do the Marvis Actions, which is like a driver assist action for the end users to indicate that, hey, something is off in your network and this is what we think the reason is. Can you correct it so that the users start experiencing a good experience? And Marvis was smart enough where when the user action is taken place, it continues to validate and then moves the ticket from like Marvis resolved to Marvis AI validated, right? So which means it will continue to monitor the network for next 30 minutes, next 12 hours, and then indicate that, hey, whether the issue is really resolved, right? Now, with this particular launch, we are kind of taking it up one step further where for the most highest efficacy actions, if user gives us permission, we will do the network change or the product function change as well, right? So that it is auto taken care and then present the details as to like what was the problem, when did the symptoms start, what did Marvis change, and like a before and after of whether the change helped or not. So in that sense, there are a few kind of Marvis actions that are now ready to be self-driven, which we will be kind of asking users permissions once user validates the efficacy of the data. If they give permission, then Marvis Auto takes care of that particular action. This in true sense is like the time-saving aspect that I was mentioning, where the key function or the key thing that we kind of aspire with Marvis is to automate like nominal jobs, to automate, let's say, like very repetitive tasks for any end users, such that they don't have to kind of log into the dashboard to do that, and then hence it kind of saves them the time, and then they are able to do a few other things in their day-to-day aspects, right? So that's where like Marvis is super exciting. Like every year when we come out, the bottom portion of the slide, if you see, that never changes, but that entire data set, including like our toolkit and then the CI and self-driven, right? We are able to achieve new aspects of the product or the new functions of the product, which continues to help our customers.
So are you able to do this because you're being able to bring more data into the system, or are you able to do this because of the advancements of AI and everything that's going on right now in the AI world?
That's a super deeper question. Thank you for that. I would say both, because one is like let me address the first piece of like the data itself, right? If you kind of have heard us or anyone else like Bob or Sudhir kind of presenting or kind of in their videos, etc., we are like microservices based, right? Which means for us, any data that we ingest is also based on a microservice, which means we have created an ingest service, which is like independent, where if I am kind of ingesting data from, let's say, Cradle Point from their net cloud, if I'm ingesting data from Zoom or Teams from their cloud, right? Or let's say a Zscaler or a Palo, right? All of these are independent services, which means at any point of time for any given cloud instance or customers, I'll be able to spin up a new service, which will slowly start kind of getting the data from the cloud, whichever it is, whether it's Teams, Zoom, or whether it's Cradle Point. And then now, once it's in our cloud, with respect to that particular customer's part, we are now able to correlate more details with respect to network data and then come out with these functions, right? So net are like a microservices architecture, even in terms of ingesting the data as well, is kind of pretty simple and keeps it quite simple to augment any new data set, right? Including our own, let's say, if it's minis and minis evolution into more data, or if it's any third-party data as well, right? So we will be able to kind of consume. And to your point, yes, once we have that data, then obviously, yes, with all the new kind of evolution in the data science and the AI algorithms, right? That makes it better every year. For example, let me just kind of give one detail around that, right? Like you said, prior to LLMs, we used to do our own kind of algorithms, right? So transformers, etc., to kind of achieve our NLP and answers. And post post GPT, now we have kept it such that we continuously evolve models for LLMs and any other, right? And the function is such that at any point of time when we feel like our teams come back and say the performance on a different like a different architecture or a tool is better, we can simply swap out that to that new tool, right? And then we can continue to, that way we can continue to benefit from like all this new betterment of the tools itself. And it's kind of very simple enough that at any point of time, once like the efficacy and then the like an A/B testing is done, if we find something else is betting, some other architecture and tool is working better, we will be able to swap it into that.
And Francois, if I may add to it, the AI is only as good as your data, right? So Kumar talked about the architecture, that where you can ingest now. Mist architecture is in a way that built that if we decide to pull in a new source of data, it's pretty flexible enough to do that. But we always start with good data. So, strong, clean data that's coming in from all of our endpoints. And then that's how the more data the AI sees and the labeling, the better the AI gets, right? So there is always work at both the ends to make sure that the data coming in has high efficacy, and then that the model that is consuming it is spitting out, bubbling up right actions and everything for the self-driving journey. So data is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's key, because I was having this conversation earlier with somebody about how people are using AI now for networking, and they actually said to start with AI. And then my argument was, well, if you don't know the networking, right, the information you got to put into AI, it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. And so I think that really is a challenge with AI as we start to use it, is some people may not know exactly what they're trying to do, or may not know how to, I guess, use the right prompt in AI. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing with Marvis is the interaction with it as people, I guess we have the conversational part, but you had your Gen AI piece and then the self-driving piece. I think those are two important things, at least for us as Wi-Fi engineers. We need to know what happens under the hood and use AI as a tool to make it more efficient for us to do our work.
That's absolutely true, Robin.
Yeah. I think there's, for us in the field, one thing that's, especially when we talk about networks, production networks, we want to make sure we're being super careful when we do any changes. We don't want the network to fail because, how bad that can go.
Yeah, well, I did like that Kumar said the self-driving part will make the nominal changes, right? It's not doing these big drastic changes right off the bat, but it is doing some of the easier changes that are, I guess, low-hanging fruit, right? Like missing VLANs or I don't know, rebooting a port, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess that was my question for you, Kumar, is, you know, when defining, unless you want to talk about that later, you want to start with the minis?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Let's take one more question and then we'll switch to it. Yeah.
I was going to ask you for the Marvis Actions and what you decide to trust. You know, how like which actions do you guys trust or allow the user to trust today, and which ones do you have on the roadmap? You know, for the months to, and how do you decide which action you guys are confident enough that, you know, it will benefit the network instead of hurting the network? And how do you kind of address that, or, you know, set the bar, the threshold?
Yeah, so let me do this where let me switch directly to that. That way, like, we can kind of finish off that topic since we are kind of like talking on that aspect, right? So give me 1 second. Let me switch to the actions itself. Let me know once you're able to see the full screen of it. Yeah. So yeah, so to your point, right? So let's say, like as I was mentioning earlier, right? So there was Marvis Actions has always been there. So these are like high confidence actions where we kind of request users to take some kind of like actions on the feed, and then kind of validate whether it really resolved the issue, meaning like the symptom is no more seen after a while, right? For the batch time that it continues to kind of monitor. And also, whenever the issue happens, we send webhook, which creates tickets on the NOC or whichever platform, whether ServiceNow or a different platform you're using. Now, what we are doing, to your point, is, hey, of those that are of very high confident, where we can take actions on our own, we kind of put them as like a list of trusted actions and ask for permission. If permission granted, then to your point, we will be able to kind of start self-driving that. Let me kind of do a quick demo on that, and then kind of I'll kind of speak to that the detail that you mentioned, right? So here, if you see, pretty much this arms we have been used to in the Marvis section, where there are various actions. This is under switch. Now those actions that can be self-driven will show a Marvis icon to the next to that. And to your point, like I just paused the video. So basically, these are the main ones that we are aspiring to get within our June push, right? End of June, we'll have that, wherein if an AP access point detects a loop, right? And then we know which ports are involved in that kind of loop. Probably kind of, if given permission, first is like we'll start showing that detail. Today AP loop detected is shown in the Marvis Actions. And as user sees that and he feels like pretty much it's kind of every time it gets it right, then if given permission, then we can go and shut like a port or a few ports involved, right? That are probably causing loop, we'll be able to kind of disable them, right? Similarly, in insufficient capacity, where like based on wireless capacity issues observed, if there is a like a possibility of RRM making like dynamic changes with respect to like turning like a access points into dual phi, changing bandwidth, reducing or increasing it, changing the power, right? That will, instead of now just showing under AP insufficient capacity and where which AP is involved, it will now try and do everything at its disposal, apart from adding the physical APs itself, to kind of get away with the capacity issue. And of course, it will still show the occurrence of it and then indicate that what was the symptom, which were the APs, and what did it change, and like how did it help, right? Did the bad user minutes went down after that? Non-compliant is simple, like firmware wise, if it sees any other non-compliant firmware, based on the auto time given, it will kind of update that. Port stuck is something we have been doing earlier also. This is where this was our first kind of self-driven actions, right? So meaning like if a device is an access port device, it could be a white phone, it could be like a camera. It's kind of drawing the PoE power, and then it doesn't have traffic in both TX RX directions. Then or like one of the directions, right? Then we know probably this is stuck. The device is stuck, is not able to do complete traffic or full functionality. Such device we kind of we bounce and then see like if the device gets recovered, right? If it doesn't gets recovered, if it gets back to the same state, we'll still have the Marvis action. We'll send the webhook. In case it gets recovered, and then we continue to monitor and see like if it gets again multiple times, and then whenever you go to that occurrence, it will show that what was the occurrence of that, and then hence for let's say like always said, right? The camera not working, instead of figuring it out after 5 days where you have lost the footage for what show, right? Versus like it's being kind of bounced at the fly, and then also there is an occurrence of Marvis action that still indicates that hey, this port was not working well, has been bounced. This is the history of it, and then this is how the traffic looks before and after. That is of huge benefit, right? And similarly, the misconfigured port, where if there is a port where we see like there is VLAN traffic coming through or request coming through for a certain VLAN and is not present, whereas it's present on its uplink, then we can always go and update the port to add that particular VLAN into the port config. And these are some of the initial ones, right? We also aspire within a couple of months to do like a rogue DHCP server. That's very common, especially IRA for folks where people in their dorm rooms connect anything and everything, right? So it could start serving DHCP. If we find one rogue DHCP like that, we can always shut the ports. We can do DDoS port shut. It's not called out here, but these are some of the main self-driving ones that we are kind of working, right? If a port is doing DOS traffic like and kind of causing like DDoS, right? It's like an and pretty much it's like an access port device or something. Then we can shut that port and create an kind of we'll create that list so that will like user still knows what was found, what did it happen, and then they can always we have a feedback mechanism where people can say like this was wrong, and hence I'm turning this permission that I had given earlier, or let's say initially they have not given permission, they continue to check, and then every time it is correct, they can always enable the permission itself, right? So just the way it will work is, yes, once you give us the permission, it now starts self-driving, right? So the action that was self-drivable will now start self-driving, which means anytime if you get into that, it will show like, hey, which are the switch ports that had port stuck and what was self-driven, and then post that. There is a trend of like actions which will show like, hey, apart from showing the evidence itself, it will also show like what are the actions created, which were self-driven, and when was it done, right? So that way, net we feel like I think to Roel's point earlier, right? We are not doing something which will kind of the scope is not like too broad, where it will touch multiple devices, multiple ports, and kind of can trip anything or different which it hasn't seen, right? It's fairly confines itself to like let's say like probably let's say one port one kind of switch actions, right? And then maybe even in terms of like the capacity issue that I mentioned, it's probably around like a couple of APs, 3 APs in a certain region where either users are heavy users in terms of they are doing a lot of like collaboration, team Zoom calls, plus uploading, downloading, things like that, or capacity wise, there are a lot more users sitting in that area. It will only touch a few APs around that, right? It's not like net it will never make changes that will be like a fully site driven, right? Or like which will touch all the site devices. Those kind of changes we are not kind of aspiring. These are all very nominal ones where there is an AP that does not have a VLAN. Users getting to that are getting black hole. Yes, the client roams, when they roam, they kind of continue to work well. It's the problem is there. It's just that it's like people are not observing as they minorly suffer when they are on that AP versus like on a different AP. If found, we can always augment that port with the VLAN, so that way like even those few user minutes that the user continues to suffer when they were on the TP can now be automatically taken care, right? So that's net the goal of Marvis self-driven, where anything which causes bad user experience, if it's something very evident, and if as user checks the efficacy through this dashboard and gives permission, we can start self-driving. Specifically, the notorious ones like rogue DHCP server, etc. Right? We have seen multiple times like people plug their own devices into the network, and then it starts serving DHCP. Now suddenly you have on the same VLAN 2 separate DHCP servers. Only to know the new one that came in through that plugin is kind of blackholing that traffic since it has nowhere to go.
And so you mentioned that there's a webhook that's sent whenever an action is discovered. Is there a webhook that is also sent when the action, when Marvis is taking care of it?
That's a good one, because yes, what Marvis does is, to your point, the webhook, when the JSON is sent, it will have like, hey, site ID, devices involved, VLANs involved, and what was the problem, right? And what is the action it takes. Now there is an alert ID within that JSON, and then when the problem is resolved, right? For example, when it takes that action, right, it kind of moves the Marvis action to Marvis self-driven, and then it continues to wait. For example, port stuck, it will wait for another 30 minutes to see if the port gets back to that unicast or unidirectional traffic or like no traffic case, right? It will continue to validate that for 30 minutes. And then what it does is post 30 minutes, if the device has not got back to that state, it is continuing to work. Both TXRX traffic is good, PoE, power draw is good. Then it will move that particular action occurrence to saying like Marvis validated or Marvis AI validated. And to your point, there is the webhook that is now sent uses the same alert ID that it had originally sent as Marvis action open, right? And indicate that, hey, this is Marvis resolved now. Right, and then that will if somebody is using webhooks to create tickets, so they can go all the way from open, resolve to validated, right? So they should be able to track all three states using just one alert ID.
Okay, so right now it's just a very nominal actions like you mentioned. Do you think that one day we can have like a fully self-healing and self-driving network where there's very minimum human interactions, or do you feel like we're always going to be in that hybrid mode of the AI doing some of it and the human doing some of it? Like, how do you see like the next few years?
Yeah, so I think we will get to fairly like a medium level of use cases pretty soon. For example, some additional work that will come out is we are showing let's say using the audit log, right, and the event timeline. We'll be showing let's say like, hey, so these are the changes that has been done recently, and this is the cause of the issue. And then we are kind of putting up a revert config like a button over here, right? And then when like that revert config, if somebody kind of validates that and starts using the revert config, it will take the network to the changes to all the way back when the symptom started, right? When the symptom was not present. So that way, like those kind of changes where we know very sure that some policy change was made or some particular kind of config change was made, post which the issue started. Our way to get to that, to your point, is get to like a review and revert config. And then once it gets more and more kind of high efficacy, those are some of the so apart from the simple self-driven actions that we spoke right now, the medium ones are like you kind of if you give permission, once it, let's say some policy was changed and we started seeing that an application is now not reachable through one of the uplink, right? We can kind of self-drive to revert the config to get to the original status where the application is now reachable through all of its uplinks, right? And then indicate that through an action. So that will like the whatever the policy change that they required to or aspire to do, they can always do that. And then until then, at least the network will continue to work in the status quo with a reverted config. So that level of changes, definitely yes. That way, like to your point, human interaction is won't be required to revert config and things like that. We'll definitely do. But anytime like a big change is done for like which will touch like thousands of devices, So those we will definitely kind of keep it with like we will obviously show review config, etc. In the action we'll create and say, hey, review this config. This could be kind of tripping it. But if that change kind of gets pushed to like across your multiple sites, thousands of devices, those will be for a fair bit of time. It will continue to be like human plus Marvis for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then right now we are like, when we talk about Marvis, we're talking about monitoring, we're talking about troubleshooting. We're not really talking about setting up the network or using AI to set up the network. Do you envision Marvis also helping us in the future where we can just, give it like a network diagram and it will kind of figure out the configurations of the different sites and take care like the day zero experience as well?
Yeah. So I think so. One of the things is definitely like as I was, if you observed our the initial slide, right? There was like an AI agent, and using some of the AI agents, we are now aspiring where, let's say day zero, like you said, right? Hey, create sites, or let's say create a wireless template, wire template, WAN template, and kind of apply that to this site XYZ. So those are all very simple agents where using the workflow, it will kind of continue to create that. So those definitely yes, using them in the conversational interface, we can always say, hey, add a particular site or this set of sites, apply this particular RF template and switch template or so, right? We will definitely do that. That is on the configuration aspect of it. And then to your point, day 2 to day 365. Things like, hey, help me clear stats on this particular port, or help me shut this particular port, right? Or just override this port for a different config, or override like an AP to a different device profile. All those are kind of minor config changes also that we will be doing as well. Actually, they will tie into they will tie into the Marvis action and self-driven Marvis actions in the sense like, we will allow those changes to be made through CI. And then when there is a config change like that, Marvis will indicate minis to validate validations for network service as well as application. And then let's say post that change, if something fails, it will create that Marvis action, right? And net. So that way, like this, like a flywheel kind of feedback, wherein you make a config change, and then Marvis learns that there is a config change, and then that config change now triggers minis, and then the data is taken back to actions to indicate if something failed after that config change, right? That entire thing is kind of we'll do that. And short answer, yes, config we'll do that in terms of template for sure. And any other day-to-day actions like setting port, clearing port stats, clearing duplicate MAC, any VPN, VXLAN, all those things we'll definitely do.
Yeah, you're getting really close to that configuration verification portion because you've got the minis there to help validate that. There are other systems out there where you could automate the deployment, and then it does all the verification checks for you, but you have to build those systems yourself. And I think this is kind of a way to build that into the dashboard.
Yeah, and one use case I was thinking about is, sometimes we have to spin up temporary SSIDs for like one room or a couple of rooms. So it would be nice if you can just ask Marvis, the morning off, can you just enable this SSID in that room? And it knows exactly which APs, are there. It knows, the SSID. And if it doesn't know it, asks you more details so it can configure it. And then, you're just done in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Francois, what we recently a couple of things that we are doing within the team with the invent of the latest buzz around MCP and agent to agent, right? So we've tried with Claude again with, I think everyone should try it out. You'll be mind blown. So the very fact that our architecture allows, the API is so strong, everything is built in API first, right? So with the LLM, you can pretty much do everything that you're saying today, as long as there is if you just built a MCP server on the API tools, can pretty much do that, and then there's nothing stopping from Marvis, exposing all of that tools. So it's something that we have thought about, right? So we are thinking in that direction. So
I think that one.
Yeah,
So,
we're still trying to understand the landscape. But yeah, Kumar, go ahead, chime in.
No. I think I just wanted to ensure that whatever Krishna mentioned, that's like for read-only kind of aspect, right? We are doing apart from just to your point, day zero, like create sites, no deletion, just create sites and things like that. But there will be pretty soon they will put out like some documentation and details around that, right? So probably in a month or so with MCP server with our APIs kind of put underneath the MCP, right? Some like if you have an MCP agent server or agent being like your own different systems, could be like a ServiceNow and things like that, like how you can benefit from that. So that's definitely on the card. And like her point is like that also allows you to kind of apart from our CI conversational interface itself being the consumer like agent, you can do it from a third-party agent. Let's say you are creating a change window, and in the change window itself, you can mention some of the stuff which will take care of some of those configs.
When you create these dashboards, are you able to share that out to somebody? Like, let's say my manager always wants to know if, I don't know, all these failure events for a specific building. Can I just share that and say, hey, here's a dashboard. You no longer have to ask me every Monday for this information.
Yeah. So let me kind of use this as a like a tee off to like our large experience model, right? And then I'll answer is as a part of that role if it's okay. Meaning like there is a exact example of what you just mentioned in terms of large experience model, right? So I just want to kind of show that and then probably kind of answer that as part of that. Okay, so just kind of on the large experience model itself, right? So we had already earlier introduced a Zoom and Teams user kind of minutes being pulled from the Zoom and Teams cloud, and then using that as a label data lens into the other network data on our side, right? And then come out with like what's the bad user minutes, and then if so, what is the root cause around for that, right? Net, we were able to do it at at a site level as well, at an AP level, and then user level, and then also at an org level collated, right? So this year, as I mentioned earlier in the initial discussion, we have now kind of got to ensure that we include latency, packet loss, jitter, everything, right? So initially when we had started off with latency. Now we include all the other aspects. Apart from that, we did get to like a generalized kind of a large experience model, which is let's say if somebody was not able to give us Zoom or Teams, or let's say if somebody was kind of using a different collaboration tool such as Ring Central or a Google Suite or so, right? And then they still want to understand how collaboration user experience would be in their building. We can still do that. The way we will do it is this model that has learned all these different millions of data points is now kind of put into like an out of sight cycle model, wherein it will now use all the other aspects that it has found or is available, right? So this data put into the model and still tries to come out with like a good bad user experience in terms of user minutes, and then which AP and which root cause, which AP does it involve, and which kind of root cause does this fall into, right? The reason we are able to do it is like we, let's say within Juniper also, right? So once a particular details are learned, we can always kind of have the model kind of predict without the label data versus like with label data. And then we could see that like as like it got more and more data points, it's now at like almost like north of 90% efficacy, wherein even if I don't get a Zoom and Teams, I'll still be able to predict like a bad user experience as to like which APs and which users and features are possible kind of responsible or so, right? Even using a generalized model. So the main motto for us to kind of come out with this is we can't keep doing like a model for every particular different app, right? In that way, since collaboration is the most sensitive kind of applications, if these applications work fine, then we should be able to indicate that all other specific applications should be doing fine, right? In that sense, this generalized model should help to kind of get to that aspect where the site now once indicated for certain root causes, if they are taken care, then pretty much every other app, including their collaboration app, should now start working very well, and there should be far less user complaints.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Roel. Thank you, Kumar. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.